Are you looking for a real estate investing strategy effective for the next 6 to 12 months? If there's an investing formula superior to wholesaling or rehabbing and better than landlording, well, there is. One of our sponsors has been an investor for over 20 years. He's been through it all, up and down markets. This is not new to him. But listen to this. He's offering an investing how-to kit for free to our listeners for a limited time. So go to unlimitedfundingkit.com and get your free kit to start investing without a credit check or large down payment. This information is not common knowledge. It reveals how to have virtually unlimited funding for your deals based on a technique very, very few investors know about. Guys, this is not common knowledge. So be one of the few and get the unlimited funding kit by going to their website at unlimitedfundingkit.com. Again, the kit is free, just a few bucks for shipping. So head over and get your kit, unlimitedfundingkit.com.
Welcome to Underground Wealth Secrets, hosted by Julie Houston on behalf of Bob and Ed Diamond. This is your friendly guide on leveling up your business, achieving financial freedom, and changing people's lives. This is for serious players who want to surpass their current stage and move the needle further. Tune in to get practical advice and eye-opening stories of industry leaders across the nation, teaching you how to scale your business with a strong financial mindset and true to your core values. Let's get this discussion started with your one and only host, Julie Houston.
This is Julie Houston with Underground Wealth Secrets on behalf of Bob and Ed Diamond, and I am very, very, very excited today. We have an incredible guest. I cannot wait to introduce you. Incredible background. I believe 7-time best-selling author, Frank McKinney. Frank, welcome to Underground Wealth Secrets. It's such an honor to have you.
This introduction, Julie, he has an incredible background. What is my background? Look, right there. There's my incredible background. SpongeBob pillow.
You like how I indirectly threw that in there? I was like,
you set me up for that.
Background.
So listen, everybody, explanation, full disclosure. I worked out of a treehouse for 25 years. We just sold our house, sadly. After 25 years, I raised our daughter there, who's now 24 years old. So you can imagine where the SpongeBob pillow came from to remind me of her and my treehouse. I did not set that up purposely for the camera to catch it. That's on our couch. But anyway, we're going to leave him up.
We love it. We love that. So Frank, why don't we start off? Do you mind giving a little bit of background about, your background, your professional background, what kind of led you where you're at today?
So real quick, where I am today, then I'll go backwards. So I'm a 7-time best-selling author in 6 different genres. My new book, Aspire, How to Create Your Own Reality and Alter Your DNA, just came out in my 6th genre. I build oceanfront homes on speculation, meaning I build these beautiful mansions on a sun-drenched canvas known as the Atlantic Ocean. And like Van Gogh or Renoir or Monet, I'm an artist, only I build 3-dimensional art that people can live in. They buy from us. I don't have a buyer in mind when I build these. So I build them completely on spec. I design them, furnish them down to the gold-plated toothbrush in the bathroom, linens in the beds, and towels in the closets, and hopefully somebody comes along and buys them. We've done 44 of these projects over the last 30 years with an average selling price around $14 million. I run a fairly large, I'm going to call it a nonprofit. I don't really like the name charity because charity exacerbates poverty, but we run an organization in Haiti called the Caring House Project Foundation. There's built 30 self-sustaining villages in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, caring for over 13,000 children who were eating dirt flavored with bouillon and lemon juice before we got there. Now they're living a self-sustaining existence. I'm an ultra-marathon runner, meaning that's my hobby. I run races in excess of 100 miles. That's now. Before, I'm a corn-fed country boy from Indiana. I was born on a farm, oldest of 6. Went to 4 high schools in 4 years, not because my dad was in the military, it's because I was asked to leave one school after the next, finally graduating with a 1.8 GPA. And another turnstile revolving door, I had just left juvenile detention for the 7th time before I was 18. I realized I needed to change a venue, turned around and grabbed the eraser of life and turned around to the chalkboard of life and erased what was, got on a plane with a $50 bill and a one-way plane ticket from Indiana to Florida when I was 18, no further education. And now I'm sitting in a little apartment with SpongeBob on my shoulder, having a fun time with you.
I love it. So I got to say, through your career, I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs. Like, what has kept you motivated and your inspiration so driven?
Wow. So we haven't talked until like 5 minutes ago. Right, full disclosure, we have never even primed this interview.
We have not.
So
We're
we have
off the cuff right now.
off the cuff. So my new book, Aspire, this is a direct answer to your question. Motivation, you just asked me what keeps me motivated. Motivation washes off and goes down the drain with the soap at night. We, as human beings, as a species, are not wired to be or stay motivated. That's why there's $1 billion industry out there built around motivation. Inspiration, yes. What keeps you inspired, Frank? You said that. Inspiration lasts about as long as a bad sunburn. In other words, after a week or so, it dissipates and we're back to where we were. So quit beating yourself up over the fact that you can't stay inspired or motivated, which I can't, neither can you. It's aspiration. Aspiration is what altered my DNA and allowed me to create my own reality. So when I left Indiana, I killed the person I was born to become the person I wanted to be. If you are who you were born to be and you like it, great. You don't need to kill that person off. But many of us, 7 times in juvenile detention, like I was just causing my beautiful mother to turn prematurely gray. I wanted to alter my DNA. And so that process of aspiration, not motivation or inspiration, I've aspired to 5 things in my life. So as you're watching and listening to this, stop trying so hard to stay motivated and beating yourself up over the fact you can't stay on a diet, stay on a fiscal or financial plan, go to church every Sunday. You name it, you can't do it. Once I identified what my life's aspirations were, let's use being an author as an example. So 1.8 GPA out of high school, no formal education. It would have been a lower GPA, but I had an A in creative writing. I knew that I aspired, Julie, to be a best-selling author. I might lose motivation. I might lose inspiration to be that best-selling author. But that aspiration is like the Fabergé egg. It is a jewel box that I set up on a shelf. It's sacred. And I don't lose sight of the fact of that aspiration someday is going to come true. So the first section of my book talks about the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. And it also challenges you with 25 chapters of my new book. There's only one form shaped in the form of a question. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? That legacy is going to be tied to your aspirations. And as you identify them, mine, one of them, being a best-selling author, your aspirations can never be taken away from you. No matter if I write another book or not, I became a best-selling author. So ask yourself that question: what legacy do I aspire to leave behind? And how can I tie that, or how is that tied to my aspirations in life?
Interesting. It makes sense when you break it down like that. I never really broke it down like that. So I got to ask though, through this and the inspiration in writing this book, right? And your entrepreneurial experience, did fear play a role in that? I mean, that I know for, the typical everyday person like myself, like maybe writing a book seems like the impossible, for example, like I'd be scared. Does fear impact any of these? Or how do you overlook the fear side?
This is great. You're a fantastic host. The second section of Aspire deals with the fact. Let me start by answering your direct question. I'm afraid every day of my life. I am afraid. If you build the largest house I built on speculation, meaning building a house without a buyer, I'm not a custom builder, I'm a spec builder, was a $50 million house. No buyer. Am I going to be eating at Ruth Chris Steakhouse tonight or out of a dumpster? Like, that's how I've lived for 30 years. The difference between, so no network, coming to Florida, no network, no education, no money, no friends, no connections, a tremendous amount of fear, but I never let fear stop me, Julie. I know now, as I'm an enlightened older individual, that when I'm feeling fear, that fear is almost always associated with the thought of taking a risk, not with the actual taking of the risk. One more time, when you think about taking a risk, be it financial, spiritual, relational, dietary, physical,
whatever,
on and on, it's the thought of taking that risk. And that risk, by the way, is usually associated with a big change or a big challenge in your life. The next thing to set in instantaneously is fear. Most of us stop dead in our tracks because of the sensation of fear associated with the thought of taking a risk. Now, that's philosophical, Frank. I kind of get it, but let me make it simpler. You get on a roller coaster. Most everybody's ridden on a roller coaster.
Correct.
That metal bar comes down across your waist and you start going up that first hill by way of the little gear, clickety clackety click.
My hands are sweating.
Your hands are sweating. Your heart ready to pop out of your chest at the thought of what is about to happen. Nothing's happened. You're safe. You're in your seat. You are secure. Nothing has happened. Same thing in business. Same thing in life. Relationships, finances, physical challenges. Once we get to the top of that hill and that roller coaster of life starts going down, what do most of us do? We scream, but we scream with excitement, with thrills. Some of us throw our hands in the air right around the thing that is life or the new business or the new venture. When that ride gets to the end, what do many of us want to do?
Do it again.
Get out of the car and do it again.
Let's
Run to the back of the line. Run to the back of the line. So that's what I'm trying to get in the roller coaster of life. Hang on while it's going up. Once that you take the risk, meaning the roller coaster tips over the top, that fear is replaced with excitement and joy and jubilation. Primarily, this is what I hope you'll feel, that at the most physical level, you are going to have regrets in life. Well, let's use that ride as an example. You're ready to get in the serpentining line for the roller coaster. Many people will turn around and leave before they even get on the ride. Let's say that's you. So you're thinking about it. Wouldn't you rather regret what you did versus what you didn't do? When you and I are 80 years old sitting on a rocking chair on our porch, or you're on your deathbed, I want to regret what I did. In other words, what I tried and maybe failed at versus what I never, ever tried. You're never going to be able to avoid regret. But if you're going to have one or the other, regret what you did versus what you didn't do, and that's getting over the fear associated with the thought of taking a physical, financial, relational, spiritual, or dietary risk.
I love that perspective when you really break it down like that.
I'm just like your listener. I'm afraid every day.
You are. Yeah, me too. Me too. I can relate. And I love how you say like changing the DNA. Like I can personally relate to that. And it like hit me pretty hard when you said that. But I got to ask, through this journey and your journey with like writing and real estate and all the other various things, like where did you even begin? Like, how do you even begin who Frank McKinney is and get that out? You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
It does. And here again, of course, first of all, if I keep referencing my book, I make no money from
No, it's okay. I want to hear about the book.
I'm just want to tell your viewers, your listeners, he's like, oh, he's hawking his book. I make $0 out of sale of my book. My book, every book that I sell, this or my other 6, goes to fund the works of our Caring House Project Foundation. One book provides 200 meals for the orphans in our orphanage. So please, oh, there he goes with his book again. I don't make any money. To answer your question, so back to Aspire. How did I craft the Frank McKinney that is kind of what you said. Like
how did you brand Frank McKinney?
How did you put the pieces together to create the brand, to create the person that is Frank McKinney? In that first section of Aspire, after it asks you the question, what legacy do you aspire to leave behind? When that question is asked, it's almost like I'm asking you, would you like immortality? Because legacy is tied to immortality. Everybody wants immortality. We all want it. But wait a minute, I got to think about my legacy while I'm still alive. That's a little bit, morbid, Frank. That's a tough question. I don't know if I can even answer that now. Here's the question you can answer. And this is the question that helped me craft the person, the brand that I am. Who do you aspire to emulate? Who is it from childhood all the way to now that if you could sample, I don't mean copy. There's a big difference between copying somebody. Sample pieces of their DNA. If you saw them walking down the beach, like you'd want to put your footprints in their footprints because, man, I really look up to them. That was something that as I started to put together the brand that is, the person that is Frank McKinney, going back to early childhood, I sampled from real and fictional characters. I'll give you 2 examples. When I was younger, Willy Wonka was an absolute hero to me.
I love Willy Wonka.
So watching the first one that came out in the 70s, and then the second one with Johnny Depp in the 90s or whatever, 2000s, as a child in the 70s, I related to it and watched it over and over again. I thought, wow, I mean, not as a business person, but just as a kid, like that guy had everything that I would love to, I'm going to use a big word now, but back then I wouldn't emulate. I would love to emulate that. If you ever came to any of our grand unveilings, two nights ago in this very jacket, I previewed a movie in a movie theater that I was in and produced and stuff. You'll see a little bit of Willy Wonka and all of it and then I've been asked by Oprah, USA Today, you name it. I've been asked by the public, what's the best business book you ever read, Frank? And they're waiting for this, deep answer. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That's the book from which Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was made. If you could, as a business person, create the frenzy around your product like Willy Wonka did around his chocolate bars, based upon his approach of quality, exclusivity, eccentricity, taking away from, the way he lived, and that I do that with my houses. I mean, it's like, there's a little eccentricity, there's a little lunacy to it, there's a little bit of taking away what the ultra wealthy want because they want what they can't have. That comes and was derived from a little bit of sampling of Willy Wonka. As another one, I'll give you another one. So that's a fictional character. That's not even a real person. The second one, not even. I have 5 of them I identified in my book that I aspired to emulate. The second one would be Robin Hood. So as a child in the backwoods of Indiana, I actually bought the costume, the green tights and the little hat with the feather in it, and I had my little bows and arrows. And I'd go in the backwoods with my friends, and it wasn't just shooting the bows and arrows around. It was thinking, my God, isn't that awesome that guy steals from the rich and gives to the poor? Well, guess what? I sell houses for $3,000 a square foot to the rich. Some people say that's stealing from them. It's not, of course. I sell to them. They buy it. They pay money for it. And I take that money and I build self-sustaining villages in Haiti. That's a direct connection to my wanting to emulate Robin Hood. So that exercise, that's the first section of Aspire takes you through. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? And to answer the question, to help you answer the question, who do you aspire to emulate, is so much fun. And the things I've had written back to me, Frank, it's cool that you tried to emulate fictional characters. Like, give me some real characters, Frank, but those are 2 people who didn't even exist that were absorbed into my person.
I love that. And that's a great question to ask people. I've never had it asked that way to me or anyone else, to be honest. I haven't heard it that way. So from the looks of it, I mean, you live a really enriched life. I mean, you've really successfully built, successful businesses where you're now giving back in more ways than most people can even fathom.
Well, life's a mystery. Life's a beautiful mystery. I can tell you that it's mercurial for me. I'm very mercurial in my existence. My therapist says I'm addicted to excitement. And I will tell you, for those of you who are watching or listening, there's a chapter in the book that talks about don't change. Don't change. Why do I tell you not to change? Because psychiatrists and psychologists that are much smarter than you and me say that our core personalities are formed between the ages of 4 and 10. Most everybody listening to this is older than 10. So who you are now is who you will be for the rest of your life. What I chose was I had that addiction to excitement that was very self-destructive. There was reasons I was put in juvenile detention. Julie, I didn't change. I found a constructive outlet for a destructive tendency. My constructive outlet is I build houses on spec, not knowing when I'm going to get paid, not knowing if I'm going to make millions or be eating out of a dumpster. See, that fills my need for excitement. But it's constructive. I made a living out of doing something constructive that could have gone in an opposite direction. So the life that I live, I'm a Christian, and there's a passage, and if you're not into the Bible or you're not a Christian, what I'm about to share with you is a great life mantra. Muslim, Hindu, Jew, agnostic, atheist, Christian, to whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected. That happens to be from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48. Chapter 12, verse 48. I lived that, man. When I read that, I'm like, oh my God, you were a loser in juvenile detention and really headed for a bad life of crime. I had this gift given to me called my professional highest calling, which is building these houses on speculation. It took me decades to discover my spiritual highest calling, which is what we do over in Haiti for the poor. But living by that mantra allowed me to live, you say an enlightened life, like you can't say enlightenment is a goal, because once you say it's a goal, you'll never attain it, right?
A very enriched life.
It's enriched. It's like, the Renaissance man that was back in the 17 and 1800s. That fascinates me. Being really good at a number of things that all are kind of tied together. My real estate is tied to my Haiti ventures, and my books are tied to and my running is tied to my need for excitement. So, when you're going through life, which we all are if we're watching this, going back to the beginning of the conversation, please spend time contemplating the question, what legacy you want to leave. And if that legacy you want to leave behind is a beautiful tomato garden, fantastic. But at least you identified a legacy. Then you get over the fear associated with taking a risk. And then you drop down to where you kind of mentioned, now this is the third section of my book, is personal branding. So Personal branding, it's a buzzword. Everybody uses it now. But to me, personal branding is nothing more than amplifying your essence to the point where your customers, either current or future, become subliminally intoxicated with you first, then your product or service. I'm going to say it one more time. Personal branding is the art of amplifying your essence to the point where your customers, current or future, become subliminally, meaning subconsciously, intoxicated with you first, then your product or service. You're not Apple. You're not Coca-Cola. You're not Nike. You're Julie Houston. I'm Frank McKinney. My houses do not have megaphones attached to them. They're not their own carnival barkers. I have to be the one to brand them to get, and I'm just the opening act. You can hate my clothes, you can hate my hair, I don't come with the house. I get you to the front door, and then I step back, and the true headliner, the true star of the show is that house. That's
the house when the door opens.
That's it. I fade.
Well, I love this. I mean, it's not very often I meet a lot of entrepreneurs and investors that really have gone the direction that you've gone in, and it's such an honor. If you could provide maybe one of your top or two top suggestions for anybody in life just starting out or whatever it may be, the best advice you've ever heard, what would that be? If you just had like one thing you could tell someone or two, what would be critical?
I mean, you're right over your left shoulder is underground wealth secrets. So this is what we're looking for, right? Underground stuff that people that not that you typically hear. I think the most important thing I could tell you as a person, not just an entrepreneur or a business person, is to exercise your risk tolerance. In other words, your risk threshold. Exercise that like a muscle. Eventually, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. If you don't exercise your physical body, it withers, atrophies. It's the same thing with your risk tolerance, with your risk threshold. The first spec house I ever did was a $50,000 crack house in a really bad part of town. But to me, that was the biggest risk I ever took, because I took me out of my 9 to 5, my cubicle, which was I was a tennis instructor. I was a tennis pro. I was a tennis pro making $100,000 a year when I was 20 years old.
I did not know you were a tennis pro.
I brought a Ferrari when I was 21. I was on top of the world. I realized there was a limit to how much money I could make baking out there in the hot sun, teaching somebody how to hit a forehand or a backhand. And so I slowly exercised my risk tolerance like a muscle, took myself off the tennis court, not immediately, I needed to eat, slowly over maybe a period of 2 years. And over the years, now at $50 million was the most expensive house we ever did, and a bunch of them in between, that risk tolerance just got stronger and stronger and stronger and able to withstand more and more pressure. It doesn't mean I'm not afraid, but if you asked me for one and you were going to pull the plug on our interview, that would be it. Exercise your risk tolerance like a muscle.
Thank you for that. That's really good feedback. So before we close, I want to go back to the book briefly. For our viewers, if you're interested in the book, you can go to theaspirebook.com for more information on the book. But Frank, do you mind just going a little more in detail about like Haiti and what the organization is about? And
yeah, sure.
The benefits.
It really, this is where people will tune out if I don't implore them to find their spiritual highest calling. So you watch Julie, you're listening to Julie regularly. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about success. I can't imagine that there's too much time spent on, and that's basically your professional highest calling. We all have a professional highest calling as defined by me as the ability you have to put food on the table and money in the bank. A little bit better than most. You do it a little bit better than most. Not better than everybody, better than most. Okay, well, but what's your spiritual highest calling? In the late 90s, I was on top of the real estate world. I just sold the most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County. Back then, it was $14 million. And there was a picture of me on the front cover of the Miami Herald, hands raised in triumph over my head. Wow. But if you look deep into my eyes, I was depressed. My smile was fake. I was a consumeristic, materialistic jerk. I had not found my spiritual highest calling. I went to my mentor and I said, I'm going to say one bad word on your program. Why do I feel like shit? I should be on top of the world. I just sold a house. I'm on the front cover of this magazine. He said, Frank, you know what you're doing for a living. God gave you this gift to do this. What about your spiritual side? Like, what are you doing with the gift you've been given besides putting more money in the bank and food on the table and clothes in the closet, food in the pantry. I don't know what you're talking about. I started volunteering at a soup kitchen every Monday night before Monday Night Football, 1 hour a week, serving meals to the homeless on the streets of South Florida. I started to get in touch with, I had this ability to relate to homeless people.
Yeah.
As easily as I could relate to, 3 of my 7 books have been endorsed by Donald Trump. As easy, I could go to Trump's office in Palm Beach and sit there and talk to him, but I had a better time sitting and talking to the homeless people when I was feeding them meals. That then led to starting the Caring House Project Foundation, which initially, Julie, provided shelter to elderly homeless people on the streets of South Florida because they die. Older people don't survive on the street very well. So we were providing them with shelter for $1 a month in some of our little Caring House Project homes. And then as the businessman in me said, wait a second, I'm spending 15 grand per life to put shelter over somebody here. What about a country like Haiti that is the poorest in the Western Hemisphere that has no social service system to catch the indigent? So in 2002, 20 years ago, we did our first village over there, self-sustaining. I am not a fan of charities. I said at the beginning, charity exacerbates poverty, meaning it makes it worse. Mm-hmm. We are about self-sufficiency. So a typical village in Haiti has 50 houses, a community center, a school, a church, a clinic, renewable food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise so those villages can be self-sufficient. They know when we're done, we're not coming back to help. We're done. We've set you up. Do not call us because we're off to the next village. We are 30 for 30. Never have any of our villages failed because of that self-sustaining element.
Self-sustaining element, yeah.
And so that's really I love writing. It is my hobby. But one of these books, you go to theaspirebook.com. By the way, if you go to theaspirebook.com, there's a sample chapter you can read. There's a sample Audible chapter that I narrated the whole book on Audible. You can listen to that. You can read reviews of the book. And then if you choose to get it either from us or from Amazon, know that every dollar goes to providing these meals in our orphanage.
That is fantastic. Everybody, again, you can get the book at theaspirebook.com. It is supporting a very good cause. Frank, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and being on our show today on Underground Wealth Secrets. It's been such an honor having you. Do you have any final words you'd like to say before we close?
What's that necklace around? What does that say on your neck?
Oh, it says beautiful Hungarian girl.
Okay, that's what I thought. I can read Hungarian. That's exactly what it says. No, I would tell people while you're at theaspirebook.com, which is housed on my website, frank-mckinney.com, take a look. We just released a couple movies. Short movies about my comeback to real estate, how to colonize the moon, basically metaphorically finding real estate opportunities where that are undiscovered, undervalued, underappreciated. My website, frank-mckinney.com, has been called Disney on a desktop by PC Magazine because there's so much to do there. So that's what I would suggest you do, and pick up a copy of the book. And you don't have to just get it from us. You can get it from Amazon as well. Yeah,
don't forget to get your copy of the book. Theaspirebook.com. Again, Frank, thank you so much for today. It was so much fun having you on.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Underground Wealth Secrets. May these nuggets of wisdom lead you to finally discovering your true potential. Become one of the most reliable businesses out there that's dedicated both to filling up your bank accounts and leaving a positive impact on your community. Get more informative and engaging conversations like this one at undergroundwealthsecrets.net. Don't forget to leave a positive rating and share with your friends. That's all for now. Until next time.